Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the big stories behind the data. You look at a company like Apple, and they seem completely untouchable, right? A true titan of tech with financials that just defy gravity. But if you look a little closer, you'll find some pretty serious fault lines forming just beneath that shiny surface.
So today, we're going to peel back the layers on Apple. First, we'll look at their incredible performance, just to set the stage. Then, we're diving into the storms that are brewing, from major legal battles to huge supply chain pressures. We'll also see how Apple is trying to pivot, and most importantly, we'll break down what all of this really means for you.
Okay, let's get right into it. To really get a handle on the risks, you first have to appreciate the sheer scale of Apple's success. And honestly, the numbers are just mind-blowing.
Just look at this. This is the top-line number from their latest quarterly report. Over $95 billion in sales in just 3 months. To put that into perspective for you, that's more than the entire annual GDP of a lot of countries, all generated in a single quarter. It's just incredible.
And this chart really breaks down where all that money comes from. The hardware, the iPhones, the Macs, the iPads, that still makes up the lion's share, almost $69 billion. But look over at services. At over $26.5 billion, it's not just a side gig. It's a massive, high-margin business all on its own, and it's absolutely crucial to Apple's whole growth story.
So yeah, from the outside, that fortress looks completely impenetrable. But beyond these amazing headline numbers, a very different story is starting to take shape, and it's one that's filled with a whole lot of risk and uncertainty.
And that brings us to the big question we're really digging into today. With all these external pressures mounting, just how secure is Apple's dominance, really?
When you start digging into the company's own legal filings and you listen to the winds of global politics, you can start to see two very distinct threats gathering strength. One is happening in the courtroom, and the other is happening on the factory floor.
All right, let's tackle that first major challenge, this coordinated legal assault from regulators all over the world who have basically decided that Apple's power has grown way too large.
Now, this timeline really shows you just how quickly everything has escalated. This isn't just one lawsuit we're talking about. Back in March 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice hit them with a massive antitrust case. Then you've got the EU piling on, with multiple investigations under their new Digital Markets Act. That's kind of their new rule book for big tech. Plus a €500 million fine. And to top it all off, a U.S. court found Apple was already violating a previous order from that big Epic Games case. The legal walls, they're really starting to close in. So what's this all about? Well, it boils down to one fundamental disagreement. On one side, you have regulators saying the App Store is a monopoly that kills competition. They want to force it open. But on the other side, you have Apple defending its walled garden, saying it's a non-negotiable feature that guarantees security, privacy, and quality for all its users. That's the core battle being fought right now.
All right, so that's the legal storm. The second storm is hitting Apple's physical operations. This is all about geopolitics and trade, and it's aimed right at the very foundation of how every single iPhone, iPad, and MacBook actually gets made.
This chart really says it all, doesn't it? For all the talk we hear about diversification, Apple's manufacturing power is still overwhelmingly concentrated in one single country, China. We're talking about 80% of its global production. For decades, this incredible efficiency was their superpower. Now, it's quickly becoming a massive vulnerability.
And here's exactly why that dependency is so risky right now. This recent statement from Donald Trump, well, it signals a huge potential shift in U.S. trade policy. It's not just about stuff made in China anymore. Now it's about any product not made in America. And that creates a massive dilemma for Apple's whole diversification strategy. And this is what it could mean in your pocket. Analysts estimate that a blanket 25% tariff could tack on about $110 to the cost of a single iPhone. So what does Apple do then? They face a really tough choice. Either they absorb that cost, which hurts their profits, or they pass it on to you, the consumer, and risk a big drop in demand. So, faced with all these legal and geopolitical threats, you can bet Apple is not just sitting still. It's making a huge, high-stakes pivot to try and de-risk its global operations and, well, future-proof its business. And the strategy seems to have two main parts. First, they're going big in India. The goal? To produce a quarter of all iPhones there. Second, they're investing heavily back home in the U.S., pouring $500 billion into high-tech R&D, AI, and advanced chip production.
But as this table shows you pretty clearly, there's no easy answer here. China gives them scale and efficiency like nowhere else, but it comes with that huge geopolitical risk. India offers growth and lower costs, but they've still got to build up the infrastructure to handle that scale. And while the US is the leader in innovation, the high labor costs make mass assembly pretty impractical, at least for now.
So, after all this talk of tariffs, lawsuits, and supply chains, what's the bottom line? Why should these global chess moves matter to you?
Okay, so here's what you should be watching. Keep a close eye on trade policy after the election and any chatter about new tariffs. Listen for any official announcements from Apple about their supply chain moves. And, most directly for you, watch for any shifts in iPhone pricing and what the company itself says about its future profits. These are the signals that'll tell us where this is all going.
And all of this leaves us with this one final critical question. The amazingly sophisticated, hyper-efficient global machine that made Apple the most valuable company on Earth, it was built for a world that prized efficiency above everything else. But that world is changing. It seems to value resilience a lot more now. And whether that machine can adapt, well, that's probably what's going to define Apple's next decade.